I now invite our keynote speaker, the Minister for Women and Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence, the Honourable Natalie Hutchins MP, to make her address. Welcome, Natalie.
Can I too begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And can I also acknowledge the other speakers here tonight and look forward to hearing from them, and also to Brimbank Council, to the Mayor, to the councillors who have given up their time for this very important conversation. Thank you, and thank you to the Brimbank Council staff who have done an amazing job in promoting tonight and putting it together. And can I just do a shout out at the start and a congratulations on this draft policy that Council's released around fairness, equity and respect. Really important work that councils are doing, and encourage everyone to grab a copy and give their feedback on this paper. So, 2018 continues what began last year with an unprecedented global movement for women's rights, equality and justice. Sexual harassment in any form is usually unwelcome behaviour that is offensive, humiliating or intimidating. And fundamentally, it's against the law. Women have always privately waged battles against harassment, sexism and discrimination. I remember that I experienced that in my very first job. However, over the last 2 years, we've seen women unite in solidarity in sharing their experiences, demanding stories of sexual harassment and abuse, either at home, in the workplace, at universities and in the public sphere, are dealt with and believed. Of course, just like the campaigners before them, this wave of activists have faced backlash too. Some are not being believed and are being poorly treated by the media. They are branded with gendered terms such as oversensitive, she's crazy, she's attention-seeking. Others have been told when they speak out that it's just a witch hunt. These are all strategies to keep women's voices silent. There's a quote from an American poet called Maya Angelou that really resonates with me, and that is, each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it, possibly without even claiming it, she stands up for all women. That's so fitting for tonight's discussion. Harassment towards women in any setting stems from disrespect towards women and the gender inequality that still exists in our society. And through cultural change and activism, it's got to start from the ground up. Governments can play an important role, but it's about our communities embracing this change as well. I just want to acknowledge that there was a very serious incident only probably 18 months ago now of allegations made against the Lord Mayor of Melbourne by some fellow female councillors. And when I talked about the media calling this sort of behaviour a witch hunt, I'm not sure if many people recall in the room, but one of the councillors that made that allegation actually appeared on the front page of the Herald Sun in her bikini, and it was a holiday shot that she'd put on Facebook from going away with her family years before she made this allegation. But it painted the picture of her being a party girl and trying to undermine the allegations of what she'd made about sexual harassment in her workplace. And of course, the findings that came to light after that investigation show that her allegations were upheld by that investigation. So there are many of us in this room that would have experienced some sort of abuse or harassment in our working lives, or perhaps in a role that we play in community, perhaps even within our own families. And really what tonight is about is making sure that people feel safe to tell their story, supported in reporting, and also able to stand up and encourage others around you that might want to report an incident or an issue. I'm really proud to be part of a government that takes this responsibility seriously. And 3 years ago, our government said enough is enough and called for a Royal Commission into family violence in Victoria. We'd had enough of women's lives being cut short, enough to women and children feeling unsafe in their homes. And the Commission handed down 227 recommendations, and from the beginning we committed to fulfilling every single one of those. We're building new safety hubs around the state, known as the Orange Doors, and having unprecedented sector reform, increased funding to services, changed information sharing across our agencies to better protect women and children, overhauling our court system, training our police in this area, and of course investing in prevention, because we can put all the money in the world into the services, but that's not going to stop the behaviour. We need to invest, and we are investing in the prevention space as well. The Royal Commission into Family Violence brought to light many ugly truths, including 1 in 5 Australian women having experienced sexual violence. And the reporting of sexual offences continues to increase. Our recent crime figures show that sexual assault reporting has been on the increase. And this is due partly to the social movement empowering women to report and historical reporting also being on the rise. More than 20% of the reports made to police in the recent crime figures were of sexual assaults that had occurred more than 10 years ago. New offences introduced by our government also have contributed to a spike in this reporting to police. A new law that covers upskirting, which is when, for those that don't know, when a male takes a photo of a woman up her skirt, and the distribution of sexual images without consent, which is commonly known amongst young people as revenge porn. These have now been listed as criminal acts and are impacting and being reported on as well. And the statistics continue to show us that women are sexually assaulted by men that they know, whether it's a partner, a family member, or a friend. The Royal Commission also showed us that assault and violence against women, either in the home or at work, always begins with gender inequality and disrespect. Every conversation, every HR policy, every leadership decision has the potential to enforce or challenge gender inequality and the attitudes that drive violence. Whether it's being one of the boys and laughing at a colleague's sexist joke, or seeing women reflected in your company's leadership, workplaces can contribute to the behaviours, social norms and structures that allow violence to occur. This isn't the only inequality that women face in the workplace. Women still continue to earn less than men. The gender pay gap remains frustratingly consistent as a marker of gender inequality. While the pay gap is trending down, in Victoria, men still earn on average 12% more than women. And when you compare full-time male worker to a full-time female worker, that ends up being about $244 a week. That's very substantial still. And so in response to this, as a government, we established a new advisory committee called the Equal Workplace Advisory Committee, and they're currently working on ways for the government to take action to promote gender equality in our workplaces. As the biggest employer in the state government will be applying some of these changes both immediately and into the future with new laws to support closing that pay gap within our own workforces. And in March this year, I hosted a landmark conference called Women at Work. Women at Work asked businesses to make a commitment to act in their workplace to promote gender equality by taking a pledge that supported a safe and respectful workplace, including having a complaints process for sexual abuse and harassment, facilitating access to secure work for women, and undertaking gender pay audits, as well as supporting women into leadership roles, and finally, for these companies and businesses to commit to implementing a family violence leave policy. Now, why would that be important? Well, we know that when women are trying to leave a situation of violence that a partner might be imposing on them, that they are often most at risk upon leaving. They are at most physical risk, but they're also at genuine financial risk as well. If they are needing to leave the home in order to escape the situation, the last thing they need to do is lose their job. And quite often, if someone's been suffering family violence for a number of years, they've usually exhausted all of their leave entitlements, their annual leave, their family carers leave. All of those are usually exhausted by the time they get to a stage of being able to take that massive step of leaving that relationship and getting away from that. And having family violence paid leave supports women, and of course family violence does occur to men, but when you break down the statistics, it's usually 9 out of 10 victims are women. That when they take that step to leave, it's so important that they have a job to come back to look after their families. And having paid family violence leave means that they can have that security. It's something as a state government we've supported, and we continue to push the federal government to match our commitment as well. And we've introduced it into 152 EBAs across the state now, and in 18 months of it operating, out of 290,000 employees that the state government has, 54 people have taken up that leave entitlement. And of those 54 people, on average, they've taken between 5 and 10 days leave in order to get that support to either go to court, go to the doctors, do what it's required to actually to leave that relationship, or possibly even go to court. And quite frankly, if that means that we've saved some lives, then the cost is a drop in the ocean. An absolute drop in the ocean in terms as an employer. And I know that the banks and big corporates are moving in this direction of providing this paid leave, but it's really important that we have all workplaces providing this as a support base for women. Back to Me Too. Tracy Spicer's leadership in exposing harassment in the workplace needs to be absolutely applauded. She talks about these issues at such a great level, and it's all about consent when she talks about it. Consensual relationships at work are not the problem. The problem is when someone uses their power to indecently assault or sexually harass somebody that works with them, or sometimes somebody that works for them. Harassment and violence towards women are not two separate things. They exist on the same spectrum. A culture that says it's okay, it's just a joke, there's no reason to get upset, or don't blow this out of proportion. Those sorts of cultures are not okay. We've launched a statewide behavioural change program called Respect Women, Call It Out, and it's the government's campaign to target men to step up and call out sexism or violence or inequality when they see it. And of course this year we're running our third Victorians Against Violence campaign, which will lead 16 days of action across the state beginning on the 25th of November, and will be run this year by our new agency called Respect Victoria. Respect Victoria is a prevention of family violence agency that opened its doors on the 1st of August this year. Very proud of the work that they've set out for themselves. They are coordinating these campaigns, and they will be working with councils across the state and community groups, health services all across the state to work on how do we make the difference, tip from the really big bucket that is full of incidences of family violence to a bucket that is full of prevention. How do we make that change? And I believe that Respect Victoria are an agency who can absolutely deliver that. Our biggest task ahead of us is the change we need to underlying behaviours in our society. And cultural change starts with conversations like this, the one we're having right here today. So make sure that you go out and have a conversation from tonight with a significant other in your life. Encourage them with the slogan, Respect Women, and encourage them to call it out. And I want to thank you for inviting me here today and for your commitment in promoting gender equality in our community. I know there is a lot of people in the audience that have a lot of good ideas and feedback, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you all in the questions time. If you don't feel comfortable asking a question or telling a story here in the forum, I'll be happy to talk to you out in the foyer as well. So can I say a big thank you to everyone for coming along tonight, and if you know someone that needs to report, please give them the support and be the one there for them. Thank you.